order of the Canal Recreation Park District Board of Directors. And Director Nichols, could I have you lead us in the pledge?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Doug. May we have the roll call, please?
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Lang,
Here.
Director Cusworth. Here. Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Buss.
Thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda, we have special presentations. A couple of very familiar folks who are going to be horsing around here a little bit. All right, what can I do? You have the podium.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sarah. I'm the COO of Ride On and also run the program operations at the Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center. Just wanted to start by saying thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this beautiful facility. I probably have the best office view I think anybody could possibly wish for. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide affordable equestrian services to the community, which is what we're doing our hardest to do. So as of now, in the last couple of years, up until the end of 2022, we provided almost 6,000 lessons, trail rides, clinics, camps to the community. So we're probably just over 6,000 now at the beginning of 2023. On a weekly basis, we continue to, in partnership with Canal Recreation and Park District, we provide intro horseback riding classes on Sundays. We provide trail rides on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We also have a very robust lesson program, which basically feeds from the intro classes that we provide to the community through you guys. We also provide community outreach opportunities. We've had Safe Passage Community Foundation, Youth Passage come out. We've had a Turner Syndrome camp come out, which was a group of teenage girls that have a very specific disability. We provided opportunities for 36 of those girls last summer during a camp. We do a one-day CowNet show, which is our normally a big show that we hold out at the Equestrian Center in Los Angeles, but we've been holding a one-day show out at the Community Equestrian Center here, which combines a schooling show for able-bodied and then a show for our disabled community as well. And we just combine everybody together and they get to compete on the same stage, which is really cool. We provide camps throughout the summer. We did nature camp this time for the first time last summer with CRPD. We took all the kids out on a daily basis on the tractor, on horseback to the amphitheater out there, which was a really cool experience. And then we've got another whole summer coming up of camps running every single week. We also take our kids out from Ride On, which is a really, really cool opportunity to take a ride on the trails. This is our Trail Fest event, which happens once a year. We've just done that. That was in partnership as well with Kiwanis, who provided our lunch for us. We think we put probably over 100 kids on horseback at Trail Fest. Yeah. So that's a really cool opportunity, because if you think of something for the Ride On kids, they're always confined in an arena space, which keeps them very safe. But this is an opportunity to take them out into the wilderness and experience a horseback riding opportunity that we all get to do. And it's a really fun time for them. We're also still providing opportunities for Girl Scouts. We do the occasional birthday party. And I think that's probably it. I think I've covered most of it. Yep. Okay. I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
So Ride On is incredibly pleased to be here. We are now celebrating, I think, our 21st year in partnership with Canal Recreation and Park District. We came to the Conejo Valley in 2000, and it was really an act of faith on both our parts. It was CRPD had the faith in a small, saw the potential of a small nonprofit organization, and we came into this community hoping and aspiring that the community would see what we do and they would respond, and they have. So we're here quite successfully 21 years later. I think we've put over 60,000 riders on horseback at our Walnut Grove facility. And we continue to do more and more things. At Walnut Grove this year, we just completed the conversion of space to a dedicated therapy space. So we have 8 physical, occupational, and speech therapists on staff right now. So we took one of our offices and converted it to a clinic so that our therapists can do pre-ride evaluations, post-ride work with our patients. And when the weather is bad, they can continue to provide service. So that's taking place at Walnut Grove now. We think that Rancho Potrero is an amazing complement to what we do at Walnut Grove. The ability to afford the disabled population that we've served for so many years and get them out into the open space, to expose them to that amazing location is just an amazing benefit that we're very grateful for. I was just hiking out there. Gloria and I hiked out there on Sunday. You may or may not know that we met on Super Bowl Sunday back in '84, and we hiked to Boney Mountain. So now, 38 years down the road, we don't hike to Boney Mountain, we hike around Boney Mountain and look at it. And we were hiking out in the open space out to Area 1, and you can just begin to see the wildflowers coming out. And that's so exciting. It's so beautiful and so exciting. When I came back, there was a van driving around the equestrian center from one of the senior assisted living facilities. It was a memory care facility. And the activities director got out and started to nuzzle one of the horses. So we started to talk. And I said, bring your group out here. We can get them to groom horses, just like the older individuals who probably have horses in their history can come out and groom horses. And we have this hay wagon. And we could put these people on a hay wagon, take them out in a couple of weeks when the wildflowers are in bloom, and take them out to Area 1, and get a ranger out there and talk about wildflowers. And this is something that we can afford the community right now. This is something that is just something we can do. It's not something we have to plan for, schedule, or charge for. We could just say, come and do it. And it's an amazing asset for the community. And we can do that, and we can do much more. So we're incredibly pleased with the potential at Rancho Potrero. Our purpose at Rancho Potrero is to provide service to the community. That's our primary purpose. That's why Ride On is at Rancho Potrero. The next challenge that we face, the second priority, is really to bring the facility up to standard, bring it up to code, get it back, look at what the planning people said, what building and safety wants, and build that facility the way it should be maintained and built from day one. Beyond that, we have a very nice boarding facility. But that is probably the third priority after delivering service and getting the facility up to speed. So the next years should be, really seeing the ability of everything that you have invested at Rancho Potrero and that Ride On is investing at Rancho Potrero bear fruit. And we can do more and just come up with some amazing programs in combination with CRPD, with Dos Vientos, with the community, with Safe Passage, with Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and just the whole panoply of social service organizations that make this community so great. So that's all I have. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. And we're so pleased and grateful for, as I always say, the leadership of CRPD. We would not be here, and I do not take for granted that vision that you had back in 2000 that said this would be something that would be amazing for the community. And that is something that is rare in my view in public service. And I always have great fond thoughts for you guys. And I appreciate deeply how much you have supported us and helped us over the years.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sarah. Director Lang.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you, Chair Huffer. And before I forget, Mr. Friedel, this was such a great presentation. And as I'll make other comments, is there any way we can allow Marissa to see it? Because I'm not sure she knows everything about Rancho Potrero and Ride-On and so forth.
I think Marissa's watching right now.
Oh, hi, Marissa.
Yeah.
Anyway, what the beauty of the background, the mountains and the scenery, et cetera, I think is probably one of the better ones. Not that Chatsworth isn't nice and so forth, but it's in a different type of environment. And then same thing with the Griffith Park that I can recall, Griffith Park, they're close to some of the mountains, but nothing close to what you have.
We agree.
And it's just a beauty, and it's like they always say, a diamond in the rough, et cetera. And you mentioned hay wagon rides to look at the wildflowers at this time of the year. And you said not to charge, not, just to open it up to the community. But I see this as possibly Melissa, a revenue generating thing in the future for the whole community. Hay wagon to see the wildflowers, and then a little barbecue out there or something like that, an annual wildflower season excursion. I think that would really catch on, especially these years when we've had plenty of rain to enhance the wildflower growth. So
Absolutely. I think it could be phenomenal.
Yeah, so-
It screams opportunity.
maybe
yes.
starters make it free and just
Mhm.
introduce the community to Rancho Potrero, but down the road, make it into some type of a program where Ride On or CRPD, whoever benefits from the property.
Sarah makes an incredible mimosa.
Okay, that concludes my thoughts and comments. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And when Brian mentions, 22 years ago, 21 years, whatever it was, I was part of that vote that allowed the association and the marriage between Ride On and CRPD.
Absolutely.
thank you, Director Lang. Director Cussworth.
Well, I have to concur with Director Lang. When you were showing those pictures, I thought, wow, you could be out in the Old West. You could be out in Montana. This is like, you get a feeling like you're out in the wilderness. It's really gorgeous. So it made me, I've told you many times, I want to go on a trail ride, still haven't done it. Where do you actually go? Like, you go down to the beach?
We do not. That's a bit of a long ride. Private horse owners could do that, but would be several hours out and several hours back.
Okay.
So typically we concentrate on right now we concentrate on 1 hour rides, which pretty much track the boundaries of the Casca property that adjoins our space. We can in the future, there hasn't been a terrible demand for it, but we can. The NPS has its own set of regulations and challenges in terms of getting permission to use their land. So for the moment, our plate's been full enough that we've been able to satisfy the demand on the Casca property. So that's where we've remained. In the future, I would think that we would begin to expand out into the NPS land, but that's going to be another administrative challenge.
Yeah, I could see that. That's what I was wondering. I was thinking, if you went to the beach, how would you get them down that curvy road going down and everything? It would probably be somewhat difficult and hard for the horses to get up. My other thing, kind of to go on a little bit more with what Director Lang was talking about, do you have school field trips out there? Because that seems to me like that would be huge with that wagon. And then you have that whole amphitheater and you could take them on a hike. And if you brought over a couple of horses and told them about horses, I mean, a lot of kids aren't getting close to horses anymore. You talk about native animals, the horses that were used, ranches of Canal Valley. I mean, there's so much potential there for a school field trip. And I think a lot of schools would want to take you up on that. And I think it's important to really get the kids out in the mountains. I know that a lot of children know more about the animals and flora and fauna of Africa and Antarctica and places like that than they do of what's right in their own backyard. And that would be a huge resource and also a way for people, young children, to be appreciating conservation. Like, oh yeah, this is important. We need to keep this. And then to get them up, I don't know how many kids you could have up close to a horse, I guess if you had a tame horse, but we used to have a cow that would come to our school. I mean, it was like a cow in a van. It was provided by the Dairy Association. We'd have like literally 300 kids, and the side of the, van he was in would drop down, or the trailer, and there's a cow. And the kids were dumbfounded and fascinated by this cow. And they would talk about the cow and the milk and the different parts of the cow. And the kids were always the most interested when the cow pooped. And then they got, and it was interesting. I work with first graders that they'd all get in a big long line so that they could walk up next. The cow's just in this like trailer with the, side down, walk around. They all wanted to see the poop of the cow, and they wanted to see where the milk came out of the cow. Children don't really see this kind of stuff anymore. This was like one of the most fabulous things that my school would do, is having the cow come. So I thought, man, having a horse out in that environment where you're like in the Wild West, talking about flowers, conservation, animals, I just think, I think that everybody would want their kids to come to, and you could charge. I mean, you could do it for free, but you could charge, and that could be a fundraiser for you. So anyway, I don't know if we'd ever have to vote on that, but I would certainly vote on it. I think that would be fabulous. Why is one of your horses painted? Oh, okay. I guess it doesn't hurt the horse then.
No.
They don't mind being painted. Okay. The other thing, you always think of cowboys as a bunch of boys, but you mainly have girls. Do you have any boys that are interested in riding, or is this, I know that in our other equestrian, it's mainly girls. Okay. Yeah, interesting. I wonder why it is so much that girls are drawn so much more to horseback riding than the boys are. It kind of seems like something boys would be interested in more, but whatever. I was just curious. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for providing this, and thank you for the future ideas and how this is continuing to really bless our community with all of the community outreaches and things that you're doing. I think this is important. I think it's really important for people to be out there on the trails, out in nature, learning about it. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cusworth. I'm sure you'd never guess that she's a teacher, so. Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I love seeing the photos up there and, getting out there when we do, just to see it live and in person. And I would concur with your comments, Sarah, that you do have the best office view in the Conejo Valley, if not beyond. It was a fantastic view out there. I also like the idea of maybe having Fort Potrero out there too, as kind of holding back the development, so to speak, that you're right there on the edge to keep our community protected. And that's kind of what you're doing out there. Appreciate that. One thing that came to mind, and I don't know, maybe the directors have answered it for you, but with your time out there, where do you see the future opportunities besides what you kind of knew going in with the working with CRPD, with programs, with expanding the Ride-On program, and kind of, bringing those two together? Just curious, what did you learn as you go back? Gosh, I never thought that we could do this also, and how would that play into the future with where you see the adventure going as you continue to play this out?
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly think, we hadn't thought of the hay wagon as an opportunity. So that's one way to create an accessible way for individuals who might have mobility impairment issues, we were talking with Rick from Dos Vientos, and he was saying that people want to go out to the famously named Area 1, I'm gonna keep bringing that up, guys, because you gotta come up with a name for that place. I gotta tell you, you need better than Area 1, but all right. And how challenging it was just to carry like equipment out there, like a drum. He wanted to do a drum circle out there, and how challenging it was to get out there. So the ability to move people out there and move even just modest equipment out there so that people can enjoy the area is, I think, one thing that really kind of sang to us. Eventually, we want to see a program that really mainstreams able-bodied and disabled populations. In a sense, I shouldn't have to say this, that every business, every opportunity should be equally available to those with all abilities and those with disabilities. That's not always the case. We are expert at kind of affording those opportunities to individuals with disabilities where others can't. And bring those two worlds together. So when we do our one-day show and we have the able-bodied competitors competing next to the disabled competitors in the same class, doing the same things, being judged the same way, that's a very powerful message. And that's something that's unique, and something that we would like to see a lot more of. I'd like to see that happen everywhere in the world, but it's challenging. I mean, I will tell you, it is quite the things that we do when we put disabled riders on horseback 140,000 times safely. That just rolls off my lips, but that's extraordinarily challenging. That takes an extraordinarily skilled set of individuals who know intimately the characteristics of the horses and the challenges faced by the riders. And those are putting that team together to support that is just essential. And it's really remarkable, and it's rare. And Ride On does it extremely well.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because anytime the park district or any entity goes into a new venture, you have something preconceived, and then as things roll out, you realize there are opportunities there that you had no idea existed. And I'm sure that will continue to be the case. Just as you were talking, Brian, about the time spent here, the term inclusivity is part of our programming. We have with the therapeutic program, years of history there, and then with the Ride On program affiliated with CRPD, 20 years. I mean, this is not new to the park district. I think the park district was probably in the very beginnings of trying to include people in various realms and capabilities, and to see how you have helped to make that progress. Sarah, you're an integral part of this. It's just fascinating where they're competing side by side, and we don't have to have separate categories, that they're competitors, and that's just the way that it is, and everyone's having a blast. So thank you for helping us lead the way, and I look forward to the future, and what you don't even know about yet will come to pass. So appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Brian and Sarah, thank you again for the update. It's always great to have you folks back at least once a year to find out what's going on. What you've accomplished at the Ride On facility over the 20+ years is, the numbers is one thing, but the people you've been helping there is just absolutely wonderful. And it's been what, 2 years, 3 years, or maybe less, that you've been out at Rancho Potrero?
3 years at Rancho Potrero, 2 years with the park district.
Right. And you listed some of the programs and activities you have going on there, just what you have accomplished in that short period of time is absolutely amazing. And there's so many programs. One of my favorite programs that the district has been involved in for years, and you had some of the kids out from Safe Passage once or twice. And I mean, these are kids who likely have never seen a horse before, unless maybe it's on TV or something, but to get a chance and get out there and really get hands-on with horses must have been really special. Hopefully you folks, your team, the staff that you have, but I know a lot of what you accomplish is through the volunteers out there. which is certainly typical of our community, getting so many people out helping. So thank you for what you do. I'm going to switch hats for just a moment and apologize for not being able to be out to the event that Kiwanis cooked for. I was out of town that weekend, so I'm sorry I missed that, because that's always a lot of fun. But thank you for everything that you do for our community, for the young and young at heart in our community, and we look forward to seeing you folks soon with another presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along on our agenda, items from the public. We have nobody in person. Do we have anybody? If there's anybody online who would like to speak on this items from the public, please raise your hand. Nope. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5, approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. I'll second that. We have a motion of second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item 5 or 6, consent calendar A, B, C, and D. Is it just those? Yes. Any questions or comments on any of those items on the consent calendar?
I had a question.
Yes.
So why did the administrator vacation maximum accrual cap come up? Did one of our new administrators not, was that? It was just interesting to me. How did that come up?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Mr. Mooney was named administrator, and in doing so, it was not at all the intent that he would actually have a lower vacation and cap by becoming the administrator. So by making this change, and it actually only affects him for like 1 year because he's so close anyway, but he's not penalized by becoming administrator on his vacation accrual cap. So
Well, I kind of assumed that is why it was, but because I thought, well, that's kind of an unusual thing to all of a sudden be putting on a agenda, but we certainly wouldn't want you to lose in vacation time. And
he's penalized in other ways.
Yeah, you got that line before I got it. Okay. Any other questions on these items? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Director Lang.
Yes, I'd like to move item 6, consent calendar A, B, C, and D.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item 7, deferred matters. I don't believe we have any. Item 8, items for discussion. I don't believe we have any. Item 9, new items. A, annual audit report. Are we going to turn this directly over to you, Ms. Smith?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair Hupper. I'm going to ask if I can be allowed to share my screen just for a minute before I introduce our auditor. And while she's getting that going, I just wanted to give some highlights. So the form, the paper that I gave you all with all the colors, hopefully you got it. This is my colorful version of the highlights that are in the first part of the financial statements. So hopefully I can share it on here too, so folks can see it. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, so just some really quick highlights before I turn it over to our auditor. So for our budget performance, those are typically the numbers at the bottom. And that's our revenues came in $1 million over budget. Our expenses came 1.4 million under budget. So our actual revenues and expenditures ended up being 2.3 million to the good for the last fiscal year. We have a 7.7 million unassigned fund balance that I'll discuss later when we talk about reserves. We have restricted funds of 11.8 million. That's our assessments and our trust for pension stabilization. Our reserves, again, that we'll talk about is 22.8 million, our capital assets of 99.3 million, and a government-wide net position increase of 5.1 million over the fiscal year with a net position of 174.7 million. So that's just my little colorful summary in case you didn't want to reread all of that jargon in the audit report. But because we love jargon, I'll stop sharing this and introduce our audit supervisor, Veronica Hernandez. And I think she's on and she can give a little presentation about how our audit went. Veronica, are you on, hopefully? There we go.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Okay, awesome. So as Melissa said, yeah, my name is Veronica Hernandez. Today I just have a short presentation kind of just outlining just the details of the audit and the audit process. So just give me a moment. Sorry. Okay. Alrighty, so we'll start with the district's responsibilities. So the district presents the financial position and results of its operations fairly in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. It is to adopt sound accounting policies, provide reasonable accounting estimates, establish and maintain internal controls, and prevent and detect fraud. Our responsibilities are to examine on a test basis evidence supporting those amounts and disclosures from the financial statements, assess the accounting principles used, estimates made, and evaluate the overall financial statement presentation. We also review the district's internal control policies and procedures. And ultimately, we express an opinion on whether those financial statements are fairly presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our audit process consists of an interim audit, which includes an internal control review and a detailed assessment. We start by obtaining understanding of the entity's policies and procedures. We review the current internal control systems in place, and then we ultimately test controls over those cycles. Our year-end audit is a sample audit of the financial records. We inspect relevant documentation. We make inquiries about policies, procedures, and transactions. We confirm balances and transactions with third parties and perform analytical procedures. Lastly, we'll compile the financial statement data and the note disclosures with the help of district staff and develop an opinion. Our opinion is that the financial statements are fairly presented. We issued an unmodified, otherwise known as a clean opinion. All significant accounting policies have been consistently applied. Estimates appear reasonable and disclosures have been properly reflected. Other key points to note is there were no disagreements with management, no material errors or irregularities discovered, no significant accounting issues, and no material weaknesses or any significant internal control deficiencies. And that is our presentation. So if anybody has any questions about the process or anything, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Anybody have questions of Veronica? Yes, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Veronica, thank you for that quick review and appreciate the time spent to conduct the audit. I did just have kind of a general question as you proceed through an audit process and in reviewing your materials as well as your presentation. Everything was fairly represented or presented, no disagreements, everything seemed to be in order, which I believe would be an indicator that the books, the way that the books are kept, so to speak, are satisfactory. And so that the processes in place are doing what they're supposed to do. With that
Correct.
being said, you know, whether it's you personally or somebody else, the next time around coming through that, with that type of a past year history, what do you look for from time to time to say, well, you know, what's changed, you know, what's different, you know, what might you, because I would presume if, you know, we had a good report last time and a good report this time, Are you looking for red flags? I'm just curious from an auditor perspective. Again, it's just a matter of making sure things are done correctly, which they have been. What gets your attention that causes you to question if things maybe are not going correctly?
Yes, so what we like to do each year, we determine whether we add a different procedure or it's, sometimes we'll come across a different type of transaction where maybe we'll ask a little bit more further questions and stuff, but we do try to kind of like switch it up every year to year just to make sure that, we're not doing the same procedures every year. And because we do a sample audit every year, the clients, you guys don't know exactly what we're looking for. So we'll come across something that, maybe was a little bit different, and the materiality will change based on, based on the activity that happened in the year. So that also kind of changes up what exactly, if we need to extend our procedures, if we need to do more or less. And so it'll be a little bit different each year.
Thank you. I mean, it's, not a very exciting report, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Do we have any other questions from board members for Veronica? Yes, Director Lang.
Thank you, Chair Huffer. Veronica, I know you have a variety of different types of organizations that you audit, probably cities, probably water districts, sanitation districts, et cetera. And some of them similar in size to CRPD. How would you rank CRPD in its procedures, efficiencies, et cetera, and overall performance?
So based on just our understanding of the procedures that are in place, since we started, we had, made recommendations when we took on the audit, and the district, they took our recommendations to, make their current procedures more solid and, try to avoid any type of errors or anything that kept, possibilities that, any fraud or anything like that could happen. But, from our perspective, the district and the things that we've reviewed, it appears strong. The controls are good in place. They have good controls in place to try to avoid any sort of, mix up or anything that could potentially cause any fraudulent activities. And there's good controls and, segregation of duties. So from our perspective, what we've seen and what we tested, it appears strong.
Okay, so are there similar sized districts that are still coming up to speed in some of the procedures or the way that we handle our finances, et cetera?
Yeah, so we've had some districts or some other clients that are either smaller or more. It all just depends on, because of the size of each entity, if they lack, staff that they could, try to segregate certain responsibilities, it becomes more difficult. But I think the way that the district is set up right now, the team that is already in place, they've learned to try to segregate, who does what. And that's where those controls, that's where we can see that it's a strong control, because they've kind of segregated and managed who gets to do what, and no one has too many responsibilities.
Okay. That concludes my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Director Cussworth.
This is maybe a little more for Mrs. Smith. We change auditors frequently, don't we? About how long do we keep an auditing company before we change? It seems like we've changed at least once since I've been on the board.
So best practices every 5 years. This is actually our 4th year with Veronica, and we've actually just put out an RFP for a new one because we needed to change the scope of it. So we'll be coming to you in a couple months with a new audit firm. So it's our last year with Veronica, but it's been 4 very nice years with Veronica.
So you said that's best practices. Is that pretty typical for an agency such as ours to continually change auditors? It seems like that would be a good practice.
Yeah, and like Veronica was saying, they mix it up and then we mix up auditors, and you get a good kind of well-rounded analysis every time. You keep it changing so people can find things that you're doing wrong and that you can improve on.
Or no other questions? Veronica, thank you very much for your concise report listing our responsibilities, your responsibilities, and as Director Nichols said, the somewhat boring results that everything seems to be in order. So thank you very much, and we will
Thank
miss
you very much.
being able to see you next year. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, do we have any further questions for Ms. Smith? If not, I believe we are asked for acceptance of the audit report based on the staff recommendation. Director, everyone's like, I'm going to call on you, Director Nichols.
fine.
He's pointing at you more than you're pointing at him, so.
I accept that pointing, yes. No, I move we go ahead with staff's recommendation to approve the audit.
Thank you, and
I'll second that move.
thank you very much. Motion and a second. Before we take the final vote, I just want to thank Melissa and your massive staff for all the work that you put into this process. Veronica managed to summarize it in a few minutes, but I suspect it took more than just a few hours or days or weeks to get all of this successfully put to bed. So please thank everybody involved in the process. We do appreciate it. And with that, I will, all in favor of accepting the audit results?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. And we will move along to 9B, annual review and adoption of financial reserves policy.
You get,
Back to you, Ms. Smith.
you're back to me, so thank you. And if I can bug Steph to make me a panelist again so I can share my screen. I'll briefly go over the reserves that are in your packet, and Director Tara Huffer has to hear this all again because I reviewed it with the Finance and Audit Committee, but I'm sure he won't mind. Okay. So the CRPD reserves, the policy basically outlines the 6 different reserves that we have. And they sound exactly like what they do. So the operating reserve is to ensure that we can continue operating if there's some sort of emergency cash flow situation. The claims and liability reserve is for claims and liability issues. The equipment replacement reserve is to replace equipment, and the vested leave reserve is to be used for vested leave balances. The pension stabilization fund is for pension liabilities and other post-employment benefit liabilities. And finally, the capital facilities and property acquisition fund is for capital facilities and property acquisition. So some boring names that are very straightforward about what those reserves are used for. So I'll walk you through. I can get it to move. There we go. So this is the spreadsheet. I know it's small up there, so hopefully you can see it in your packet, but I kind of want to walk you through the different rows that we have. So the very top row, those are the balances that were in our financial statement as of June 30, 2021. So at the beginning of the, oh, go ahead. Oh, thank you. So those are the balances that match the last year's financial statements as of June 30, 2021. The rows that are immediately below it are all the activity that happened during fiscal year 2021 to 2022. So you'll see we had some gains in the unassigned fund balance and the vested leave. We used some of our unassigned fund balance for the Rolling Oaks acquisition. And then as part of our year-end close, we automatically transfer any salaries and benefit savings into our pension stabilization reserve. And so that's the 1.32 that was removed from the unassigned column on the far right and put into the pension stabilization column. So after that, we have the center line, which is the balances as of June 30, 2022. Those are the balances that match the financial statements that you just accepted. Thank you. And so that is how those numbers change from the prior year to that current financial statement. So the numbers that are there have some things that we know are going to be used in the current fiscal year for fiscal year 22-23. If you look at that unassigned column on the right, you'll see we have 7.71 million in unassigned fund balance. 450,000 of that is what was set aside for Farland House purposes. 2.2 million of that is the remaining balance of the interfund loan that we gave for the Page Lane. And then 3.14 million is what we designated for our capital projects that are going on. In other words, Andrew gets to spend it. And so at the very end of this year, we're anticipating a projected balance of 1.92 in the unassigned fund balance at the very bottom. And you'll also see that we transferred 3 million from the pension stabilization fund into the pension stabilization trust that we have. And that was in reaction to the CalPERS estimate for fiscal year 21-22 severely underperforming. I think they projected a -6 for that. So we took that action in October with the board's approval to contribute more to the trust at that time. So that's how you can read that spreadsheet. If you have any questions on that, I can stop and answer.
I don't, oh, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the Farland House revolving fund expenditure of $450,000, could you explain what that was for again, please?
So it's not an expenditure. So that is actually the amount that we set aside to be used at that property that is just included in that 7.71 million unassigned fund balance number. So we still need to decide what we need to do with those funds that we had set aside for Farland House.
So it's just an earmark then?
It's just an earmark.
Okay. And likewise for the interfund loan, is that just an earmark?
Right. So it's included in that unassigned fund balance, but at the moment it's designated for that Page Lane project.
Okay, so it's just assigned but not expended. Is that correct?
Yes,
If I could. hopefully I-
absolutely.
We've already, a couple of years ago, we agreed to loan the money
Yes.
to complete the project, to add to the money that the city donated. So that loan is still there. These funds are designated to pay off that loan. Would that be a correct?
Yes, this is the remaining balance of what's owed back to the general fund for the use of that loan.
Okay, and then the revolving fund for the Farland House, since that has since been sold. What I guess my question is, what was the intention behind that 450,000? What was its purpose?
My understanding was that was a collection over time to be used for improvements of the Farland House as they were needed.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Very good.
And if I'm wrong, please let me know.
No, and I would just maybe add that the way that the funds built over time is that we stuck the rent revenue from the tenants that were paying that were living there. We just kept putting it in there thinking someday we might have to rebuild this whole thing, but we disposed of the property anyway.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
So bringing up the Farland House, is there anyone here, any place here where the money that we made off of the sale of the Farland House is? Because we didn't really know what we were going to do with that money at one point.
Right, so it would be included in one of the very top lines where it says fiscal year 21-22 revenues less expenses. So the 2.7 million in unassigned fund balance, it's part of that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the spreadsheet? If not, continue on.
All right. So what all of this means for the reserve policy is that primarily the only changes we wanted to make was updating the balances to match that center column so it coordinates with the financial statement. So we're not going to update with the projected out year balances because they're still just projected. So we always update it with what was confirmed by the auditors, what's in the financial statement. So that's primarily what the red line, that is all that the red line strikeouts in the reserve policy for your approval is to tie to that financial statement number. The other thing that's kind of interesting about it is The last time we changed the reserve policy, we knew we were getting close to being fully funded on our retiree liabilities. So we set up different threshold amounts to change maybe how we fund that 1.3 million transfer of salaries and benefits into the pension stabilization. That's typically an automatic thing we do at the end of every year. But the reserve policy now indicates that if you get above a certain amount funded, that's no longer an automatic thing that happens, that we would come to the board and say, hey, you know, we're over 100% funded. Do you want to continue contributing that salaries and benefit savings to the pension stabilization reserve, or would you rather use it somewhere else? So now, let me go to the next slide. We're now at it's the first year that we're at that level. If you look at the bottom right corner of the chart, you'll see our retiree liabilities are 105% funded at the moment. Each column is a different liability. We've got CalPERS, we've got our retiree medical, and we've got our OPEB liabilities. And then the rows show the liability amounts and where the assets are and our total funded status. So right now we're at 105%. This is, I do have to add the caveat that the actuarial reports are based on June 30 of 2021. So they're a year behind, and they do not take into account that CalPERS report that we're anticipating to be really low for June 30, 2022. So even though it says we're 105% funded, I fully expect that when we get a new report in the next year, that number is going to change. All that said, we have passed that threshold, and this is an awesome place to be for us financially and stable. But it means next year when we are closing those books, I'll be coming to the board with a recommendation or at least a discussion about how we want to handle the salaries and benefit savings. So that's my only other note I wanted to make for you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yes, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On that last topic regarding the, I guess, waiting for the other shoe to drop on that, what those actual numbers are going to be, and expecting that it won't be quite as glorious as we would like.
Right.
And rather than saying, let's say, for example, we said, okay, we don't need to do it now, but we don't want to wait all the way till next year. Is there some time in between where you will have these numbers that you could then present those to us and we could take action at some interim period?
So the updated reports come out in about August. So I'm happy to bring the information when that happens and keep you updated on that so we can act sooner if that's appropriate. Happy to do that.
Yeah, because like I said, there's been a lot happening in the last 24 months. And I know with some of these larger, what I'll call buckets of money, it takes a longer time to actually get the line item as to what it actually is or isn't. Knowing that it's going to be in a certain direction, just not knowing what it is, it would be nice. I just would, I would like to see, just rather than making any determination now, to say, let's wait and get those numbers and then we can make a decision at that point.
Sure.
So it'd be nice if that is possible to, get that information when it's available, and then we can make a decision then. But,
yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? I'm just curious, do you have an even wild shot in the dark guess as to what CalPERS might look like when the new year's numbers come out?
I asked our actuaries at GovInvest that, and they said, nope, and we're not gonna even try to venture. So I don't think I'm remotely qualified to do that.
All right, well, I guess they're not willing to do it, then we'll give you a pass this time. So, all right. If there are no further questions, I guess we do need to approve staff recommendation to adopt the amended financial reserves. Can I get a motion, Director Cuthbert?
Yes, I'll make a recommendation that we adopt the district's amended financial reserves policy.
Director Lang? Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And again, Melissa, thank you and your massive staff for accomplishing all of this.
Thank you. And I'll pass it on to them. They appreciate it.
Okay, 9C, contract and amendments to contracts for tree services at various parks facilities not to exceed 175,000.
Thank you, Chair Huffer, members of the board. So to kind of give you a little bit of background, tree services kind of fluctuate over time. As you know, we live with an established park system, which means we have established trees. So we have various needs for those trees. So as age sets in, additional care, trimmings, as well as removals happen. So historically, we've outsourced that with tree services. 2 years ago, we came to the board, taking a look at 2 vendors that would offer those tree services. And we put them under contract of $175,000 each for a year. And we came back last year and amended that contract for an additional year. We have since brought on a 3rd company this past year that we've had success with and that have had good service for us. And so we're looking to recommend amendments for the 2 companies, which is West Coast Arborist as well as Treescapes, with the additional 3rd with a new contract with Royal Oak Tree Service. All 3 agreements would be a not to exceed $175,000 annual contract. However, we won't be spending $175,000 with each vendor. So it would be a balance of what we would have budgeted. Obviously, things change throughout the year. Surprises happen with storms and stuff. So we'll make adjustments as needed, but the goal is not to spend over what is budgeted for tree services for the year. And then each year we'll come back and assess the needs of our trees, as well as the needs working with each vendor to provide service for the parks. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Do we have any questions, Director Lang?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mooney. Good report. I believe you were on board when I recall correctly, that isn't a given, but that we just had one vendor, Mortimer Tree Service. Is that correct?
We utilize Mortimer for many years, correct?
Okay, and now we've got 3 different other tree service. Does one have a specialty over another? Is there a little difference between them? How do you determine when to call on one particular tree service to do our work?
Sure. Generally speaking, they can all offer the same services. Some have certain specialties, but also it's availability. So sometimes they won't be available for a few weeks, and we might need to use one, or one might not be available that day to take a look at something that needs to be proposed on, reviewed, and assessed like within a day or 2, depending. So that's kind of why, from a dependency standpoint, we wanted to kind of spread it out and test out new folks, and then utilize one over the other depending on availability and need and things. So, but our ground staff would say, yes, there's probably specialties within each crew, within each company as well. So.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Director Nichols?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. With the variety of options that you have, and Director Lane just asked you why you would choose one or the other. Do we have staff members available that know whether they're getting good advice or not based on their knowledge of trees, rather than just relying face value that the vendor is as good as they are?
Yes.
Is giving us the correct information.
Yeah, so we have quite a bit of horticultural knowledge and arborist knowledge, top and bottom, through our staff, from superintendent all the way down to our ground staff, 1s and 2s. And so there is a balance of work. Some stuff we handle ourselves, obviously, and then when it's a bit more or above our, I want to say above our abilities, but above our resources at the time, since our staff does have other means to be taken care of. It's more an assessment, a conversation with other professionals, how to handle certain things. So, but there are specialties within each service of company. So.
Very good. Thank you. I was trusting that was going to be the answer, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director Cussworth?
So I'm just curious, because you had 2 at 175,000. Now you've added another at 175,000. I'm assuming that you have them all at the same amount. As you were saying, based on availability, you don't know which one you're going to be paying the most to.
Correct.
But how much do you usually pay a year?
So, and it's in the report, we paid actually broken down between the 3 companies actually this past year, and this spans 2 fiscal years. So partial fiscal year prior and our current fiscal year. We did 65,000 with Treescapes, 43,000 with West Coast, and 168 actually with Royal Oaks. And so that was part of the reason of they've been available, they've been ready. And so we're looking at basically formalizing the agreement by bringing Royal Oaks as the third party.
So which page is that on?
Page 188. It is the fourth paragraph, fifth paragraph down.
Oh, okay.
So, but yes, the goal is to spread it out between all, not looking to spend 175 with all three, but that way it gives us the availability if one needs to do more work or not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I guess just to clarify, Andrew, those numbers for looks like it's about 270, 280,000. Are those full year numbers? Is that what we have budgeted for tree service?
No, so unfortunately, that's a calendar year number from our last, because it's from the contract from last February that was made. And so it spans two fiscal years, but not a partial one. And then we haven't finished this one. So it's not a full fiscal year, but typically we range from, in my time, anywhere from like 150,000 to 250,000 in our tree budget. So, and then that gets adjusted depending on storms, drought, all that stuff that's kind of unforeseen. So
You can't predict what the weather's going to do, huh?
correct.
Huh, okay. All right, if there are no further questions, we have 3 staff recommendations. Director Lang.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hupfer. I would recommend that we authorize the general manager to execute Amendment 2 contract with West Coast Arborists, Inc. Not to exceed 175,000. Authorize the general manager to execute Amendment 2 the contract with Treescapes in an amount not to exceed 175,000. And 3, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Royal Oaks Tree Service in the amount not to exceed 175,000.
Catch your breath. We have a motion. Can I get a second, please? Director Cusworth. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the 3 staff recommendations?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Item 10, reports and announcements. We have 6 different items. Are there any questions or comments on any of those items? Director Nichols?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a question on item 10D, budget performance report on page 221, where I presume Ms. Smith, but anybody can answer if they want. We have 2 line items referring to employee retirement payout. Can you explain what that is, please?
So the reason that the line items are there, the reason that we have a note on them is because they're over the projected 50%, or what was the projected percent? It was supposed to be
55%.
55%. So we always try to add a note when something goes over. So the Parks Administration line has the employee retirement payout for all of the accrued leave that Mr. Tom Hare was paid out when he retired. And the planning line is the same for Bill Palermo.
Okay, so it's just accrued vacation.
Yep.
Or leaves in general. Okay,
Yep.
all right. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yes, Director Lang?
Yes, I have a couple comments or questions associated with item 10A and B under the recreation highlights on page 197. And Tim, I don't know if you can pick up on this under the safe passage highlights. The last sentence talks about a special speaker read Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb. What is the poem, The Hill We Climb? I'm sorry.
Director Lang, I was present. I did hear the poem. It was very nice. But I could not really give you a synopsis of what it was about. But I could follow up with you and get that for you.
Well, it was just the title just kind of caught my eye, and I thought you might know or.
In general, I mean, if I could just summarize, I guess it's just, the speaker gave a perspective of just overcoming a lot, to get to,
Okay,
position that eventually you want to attain. So, but it was a very metaphorical poem, and, I could actually, if you'd like, I could find a copy of it and send it to you.
yeah, I'd like to read it.
Okay,
A lot of us are climbing hills.
exactly.
We need to accomplish as much as we can, as every step we take, steps we retreat on. Okay, and my second question is associated with item B, part dedication fees. And every report we get, we see the amount of money that the applicant has saved, thousands of dollars. And this is just a recent based on the decision that the city council made to enhance the ADU properties. But I just looked at the total of this month's report, and the applicants have saved over $15,000. So that's $15,000 that in the past CRPT would have gotten, correct, Mr.
Oh, I can get up on a soapbox on this if you want
Oh,
me to.
Me too.
But it's a state law. It's not the city council.
Okay,
It's a state law. And so folks building less than a 750-foot ADU don't have to pay most of the impact fees. Prop 218 fees like water and wastewater, they still have to pay. But other impact fees, they don't pay. ADUs are encouraged and now abundant based on the state law changes. So basically there's this push really for that to be the method for additional housing for, the housing shortage. And so we've been keeping, because we've been writing these letters rather than just, we waive it and move on. We've been tracking it. So the last time I asked Bill before he retired, I want to say it was 600,000 that we've lost in what would otherwise be park impact fees we would be then, building playgrounds with and doing other things for. So it's not an inconsequential hit. These little cuts add up over time. So we are tracking it, and we were kind of at the rate that the ADUs keep happening, we think we'll hit $1 million and probably 2 years, it'll be $1 million, 2, maybe 3 years from now. So
now,
real money.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's real money that adds up.
Yeah. Now, is there any group, city, park district, et cetera, that is starting to form some kind of opposition to talk to the state about reducing the amount of discounts that the applicants are getting?
I mean, there's grousing, it's a bit of the pendulum swinging, right? So the volume of legislation to encourage housing of any type everywhere, anything that can happen that's coming through the state, it's a juggernaut. And I think cities are on the defensive and trying to react to that, and have been for probably 3 or 4 years now. And I think the pendulum will eventually swing the other way, but you really haven't seen the development that you would have imagined based on all the conversation yet. So until you actually start seeing the kind of unit density that the state is talking about go into towns, and presumably that would satisfy some of the housing need, and then the housing market might cool. And then there might be a little bit of a take their foot off the gas on these changes that are affecting us. I mean, it is a problem. Housing is a problem. Housing affordability, availability, all that is a problem, and they're solving it. But I know one part of the solution is costing us.
Thank you.
Yes, Director
Yeah,
Nichols.
just one follow-up question. This is on item 10E regarding capital improvement project. It's for our general manager, I presume. The first item there talks about 33 major repair projects. is that just a description or are there actual categories for repair projects that you have? Minor, major, significant, whatever. It just kind of caught my attention. I didn't know if that was a formal term that's being used.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cutoff on the nature of the work or whether it's a dollar amount. But there is a rationale between what makes a capital project versus a major repair.
Mhm.
And I keep 50,000 or something. I'm not sure what the threshold is. If Melissa might know, or between the major versus, I don't know. Andrew's new.
And,
He's
and
like,
yeah,
he's
exactly.
ready to
It's,
jump
it-
right
it's
in.
more, it's more like the scale of it. And so like our maintenance and ground staff will be making repairs like on regular budget items. But for us, a major repair is something more substantial. And it could be a couple $1,000s, but it's kind of out of the routine of what they would typically be doing to make sure the building or the grounds are in operational shape, right? So it's a special planned project that's separate from that.
Oh, so it's a little bit of subjectivity to it as well as objectivity where it's, like you said, it may be a dollar amount, but it could be just the unique nature of it.
True. Yep.
Okay, just was curious. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Just a comment on my part, the final item, talking about the Canada Senior Volunteer Program. Just to update the report on the tax program, which I have some, so in the first 2 weeks, tax program has done almost 400 tax returns. So been very busy. Okay, moving along to item 11, department reports. Parks Division. Mr. Mooney.
Thank you, Chair Huffer. So fun stuff. You guys approved a big project for us. We got 8 playgrounds, a shade structure, and picnic tables. So Canal Creek North this week got new picnic tables. So that's all new picnic tables at the main pavilion. So Lakeside, Creekside, as well as Willow Bend. They're still finishing up some stuff this week. And then our first playground, we have equipment on site, but our first playground will start to be demolished next week. So we're making progress on that, which is great. As well as for that project, basically every 1 to 2 months, a new playground will be either demoed and then rebuilt, renovated. So we'll be doing that. We'll be working probably through summer into the fall for those. And it's 8 sites. The big ones are Canal Creek North and Dos Vientos Community Center and Wildflower Playfield. So those are the 3 bigger sites. We have some neighborhood parks and things mixed in there. A big project that we've been working on for some time, Teen Center and Goble. So all areas are open now. We opened up the Teen Center backyard 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks. So 2 Mondays ago. And so there's been some folks coming by, drop in, using it. They've been doing some classes and things like that, which has been great to get that place back open. Staff was actually doing some lighting design demo stuff with the contractor and the supply rep to get it prepped for the March 10th opening event, as well as some events they're going to have over the weekend. So pretty exciting, pretty fun. And then more on like the development side, the city is in the process of reviewing proposals for solar at the Teen Center as well as the Goble Center, which affects us since we program those buildings. So we're in coordination with them. They are looking wider range at all city facilities. So they are looking at the library, the transportation center, and some other sites that are city owned. So we're just one piece of that. So just giving you guys a heads up that we're working with their staff on bringing in solar to those. So, but that would be a city funded, city run project, but they're in coordination with us. So, and I'm done.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Mooney? Director Lang.
No question, but a comment on the backyard at the Teen Center. I had the opportunity to have a tour along with some of you may recall the name of Dennis Gillette and my wife and another person. And it was fabulous. It's something that I can just imagine that our teens are gonna just totally, get involved with it. Very impressive, very nicely done. And so congratulations and looking forward to the official opening.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, if not, we will move along to Mr. Dorr and the Recreation Services.
Thank you, Chair Helfer, members of the board. I have a couple things to add that weren't in the rec highlights that are recent. Last weekend, we started off our rec van outreach program again. We had done that last year, every weekend, hitting different parks. So this year we'll be doing pretty much one Saturday every month. Last Saturday, we had a really good success at our first park, Rancho Caneo. We had 24 kids come out, which I think was probably our biggest total so far. Our marketing department with Charlene and Juan have really been doing a good job to help market it. And I think it definitely helped there. Our second park, Wendy Park, was not as well attended. We had four kids there, but we're hoping to continue gaining steam and getting more kids out at those parks. The next one will be March 11th at Page Lane Park and Northwood Park. So we'll continue to market that. The Global Senior Center Commission is currently taking their applications, and the due date for that is Friday, February 28th. And I know they haven't gotten too many applications. So if anyone knows anyone, put the word out. Thank you, Director Lang. I know you'll be sitting on the interview panels that'll take place on Thursday, March 2nd. And we do have 5 potential seats available for the commission this year. And then last weekend with Super Bowl and Valentine's Day, you can bet that we were pretty busy with things going on. So therapeutic unit had a Valentine's Day dance on Saturday at Old Meadows, and they had 73 participants there having fun. McCrae Ranch also on Saturday had their Valentine tour and tea event, sold out at 40 people with coffee, tea, Valentine themes and tours. And then the therapeutic unit and Goble both had Super Bowl parties, lots of fun and lots of food. So that was a good time. And then one thing just that we're working on, we got this started last year. Director Cusworth kind of initiated it with our Science in the Parks field trip. So we're currently, Caneo Center is currently working on doing that again at some of our parks that are adjacent to school sites. And so we're in talks with a couple of the schools. Last year we did it at Glenwood, Banyan and Wildwood, and we're hoping to do it again this year, if not all of them, at least one of them, and then try to do it continually next year. So that about wraps it up. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Yes, Director Cusworth.
What time are you going to be at Page Lane Park on March 11th? Do you know?
Yes. 1:00 p.m.
And just for board knowledge, I had a friend of mine who was a teacher at Banyan send me an email saying, when are they coming back? They so enjoyed the field trip. So he was hoping they would come. So it's and I mean, he's not really a good friend, more of an associate friend. And so the fact that he would reach out to me to say, whoa, I really loved the field trip. So I'm hoping that will be successful.
We're hoping to make that happen.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, since we haven't heard from her all evening long, Ms. Smith?
Well, and I have no report, but I'm available for questions.
Any questions of Melissa? No, General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Chair Huffer, members of the board. This is my opportunity to thank Melissa and her staff, as the board already graciously did, but the amount of work that goes into doing these audits is tremendous. There is a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and the auditors, after COVID hit, kind of went from them being in our building with all of the files and having immediate access to pulling stuff, looking at it, stacks and stacks of paper on desks to go through what they want. So now they do all this virtually, and it seems like it would be easier, but it's way harder on our staff because basically they just say, go find this, go find this, go find this. Then we have to go find it, bring it back, instead of just basically showing them, here's all the files for the finance thing, pull up what you need, look at what you want to look at. So, the already heavy workload just gets bigger, and, she's done a great job, and appreciate all that hard work on that subject area. You got a flyer for that at the MSC. I know because it's federal money, I believe Congresswoman Julia Brownlee is going to be there along with city dignitaries on February 22nd at 10 a.m. And I think, they're looking for,
you elected types to be there if you can be there. So that would be great if you could go. It's kind of a neat thing and see what the city's doing with that. On March 16th, we're looking at that as our next sort of step 2 in our strategic plan update to get those other elements addressed. So that's a regular board meeting night, and I'm maybe gonna ask that we start a tad early, but otherwise just probably right here in regular board meeting setting. We'll set it up as a round table and keep working at it, but that's what we're looking at for March 16th. We have a meeting before that still, but that's it. And then otherwise the budget prep work is happening, and we do have the need for a closed session tonight. So I'll have to announce that.
Thank you. Any questions for our general manager? If not, we'll move along to director's reports and follow-up reports on meetings, conferences attended. Director Lang.
Oh, thank you. I personally, and also Mr. Dennis Gillette, who I mentioned had been in town, want to thank board member Nellie Cussworth for all the extra work, footwork and arrangements to have the stagecoach in, except donation from Dennis Gillette of a collection of CVD belt buckles from some from the very beginning. There's some missing and so forth. I have another little story on that. But Mr. Gillette in the past has donated Grand Marshal buttons from the beginning day one, for the very first CVD Grand Marshal button. And also these belt buckles will be sold to enhance the revenue for the Stagecoach Inn. So it's not part of a collection that's just going to sit in the museum. It's actually going to be a revenue generator. And there's paperwork he had to fill out, et cetera, but thanks to Nellie, all that went very smoothly, and he appreciated it as I did. And I had an MRCA meeting, and also many of us attended the VCSDA annual meeting and election of officers, et cetera, last Tuesday at the Ventura County Yacht Harbor, or Yacht Club. Yacht Club. So, and that was a lot of fun as always. So that concludes my director's report.
Thank you. Director Cussworth.
Yeah, I hated to miss that meeting, that dinner meeting. But there's always too many things going on. You can't get to everything. And I'm glad that went smoothly. Yeah, that was very nice. One of the problems they have at the Stagecoach Inn is just a lack of space for all of the things that they acquire. So that's something that they're working on, and they always appreciate the grant money that comes from CRPD, because that helps them with trying to buy storage units, redo parts of their building so that they can get more storage, so they can have more rotating exhibits. But that was very exciting for them. So tell Mr. Gillette how excited they were. I hope that was indicated to him. I can't remember anything I've done, but just before the meeting today, I did meet with Lisa Powell from the school board, and she was very excited about the Board Buddy program. She's brand new, and she asked whose idea it was. And so I told her it was our general manager's idea, and we've been doing it for several years. And she just was very open to this. We had a wonderful conversation. So I think that's continuing to bring our electeds closer. Asked me who else I had talked with, asking if we'd get together again. So I think it's wonderful. And I really feel more of a connected to our electeds by us initiating these little coffee talks. So thank you, General Manager Friedel, for that brilliant idea. And that concludes my comment.
Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to the Special Districts Association meeting, Director Huff and I had a Costco board meeting on February 8th. Then February 9th, we also had a fees committee meeting. So those were the activities that I had on my docket for the last couple of weeks. And I did have a couple of questions, I guess, for our Parks Division specialist. Actually, one is a compliment. My daughter was at the Page Lane Park this last week and noted that the staff came by to smooth out all the fire bar underneath the playground, making sure all the equipment was tight and, operating correctly. And she just was like really impressed. Wow, this is like really nice. Of course, there with her kids and was just very kind of, I guess, comforted to know that the crew is out there watching the playground. So I think most of the time we just see a playground just out there standing by itself, maybe a few kids on it, but she just was really impressed that the folks were out there actually taking care of it. So please pass those kudos on to your staff. On the flip side of things, I got another comment, which wasn't so complimentary, but it was about the Pepper Tree restrooms not all being open. That there was like one open, but not all of them were open. And I don't know what the routine is, but I don't know, maybe you could check on that. I guess the baseball players were all lining up and wanting to know why the rooms were locked. And I said, oh, as far as I know, they try to keep them operable. So
I'll check into that.
yeah, just follow up on that. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some of the meetings I've been to have already been mentioned. I did want to thank General Manager and Director Lang for submitting a nomination on my behalf. The Ventura County Special District Association was honored to be selected as Director of the Year. So thank you two gentlemen for the nomination. And that was a quite a surprise, very welcome surprise, but
Well-deserved and easy nomination to make. Congratulations.
thank you. As Director Nichols said, we had a Costco meeting, which normally that's about as busy as our meetings here, but somehow they filled up the entire Costco room with cycling enthusiasts. So that was an interesting meeting. We did have the meeting with the fees committee, and somewhere in the next month or so, we'll be coming to the board with some recommendations for facility fees. I met a week ago with Lauren Gill from the school district. Had a good conversation. She asked what was my favorite park to meet at, and we met over at Canal Creek North. So had a chance to wander around and talk about things. And she too likes the idea of the board buddies. And seemed like a useful meeting. And next week I'll have a chance to meet with Mayor McNamee. So that is my report. And let's see, items from item 12, request for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. I don't see any indications, so we'll move on to number 13, items from the public. Do we have any public raising their hands and indicating they would love to speak? Nope, okay. And item 14, we do have need for an executive closed session.
Yes, we do have a need conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54-957.6. The district reps will be General Manager Friedel, Management Services Administrator Smith, and our very capable counsel, Adriana Guzman, Esquire, partner at Liebert, Cassidy and Whitmore. We knew her when she was not a partner, just a little, what do you call when you're not a partner? Associate. Labor negotiations with Service Employee International Union represented employee regarding salary schedules, fringe benefits, and salary schedules, fringe benefits for unrepresented employees. No announcement is expected.
Thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn to the executive closed session.
Only if Mark, you